Hey, Steve Smith.
Hey, Brett Starr.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Doing great.
I'm great.
Man, fall is fully upon us.
Oh yes, it's a beautiful fall in the Midwest. The leaves have all changed colors. It's like just some Norman Rockwell.
It seems like we've got a lot to talk about today, of course, because there's never a slow week in work tech. But it seems that this time of year, this is when all the big rebrands come out. And in the industry briefing that you send around internally prior to the newsletter going out on Fridays, you drew our attention to the Cornerstone rebrand. You talked a little bit about Workday rebranding Pecan. And, I thought it would just be a great opportunity to just kind of talk about branding in general, because I think the landscape is shifting pretty quickly. And this is an important moment in brands that branding's always important. First of all, full stop. Yeah. Branding's always important. But when the mainstream market is, kind of at a point of maturity and categories are very well defined and, a pattern develops around the solutions that people buy and how they put them together and, all that stuff. Branding often takes a back seat to just, good category positioning, and making sure that, if people are looking to, go down an aisle of the work tech grocery store and buy something that you're, stocked in the right place and that people know what you are and, all that stuff. The interesting thing that happens when you're in the middle of an organizing principle, a new organizing principle like the one that we're in now, is that everything shifts under your feet. Mm-hmm. And that creates some significant opportunities for people to kind of escape the gravity, escape the surly gravity of, conventional branding, and really seize a new leadership position by focusing on bigger ideas and bigger narratives that are not as deeply rooted in, kind of conventional notions of, how business to business marketing is supposed to work or how business to business brands are supposed to work. So tell me about the Cornerstone rebrand. What do you think about that?
The first thing that jumped out at me was just like completely shifting their basic, color palette. Yeah. They've been blue forever. And now it's just like, hey, we're red. Yeah. And so, I think that's sort of an underrated aspect of brand is, the colors you choose in terms of how do you differentiate? Because a lot of times inevitably ends up, it's just like the founder CEO is just like, I want blue or gray because those are serious business colors, or those are the only colors in my wardrobe. And so you get way too much of that. And so that color palette is over-indexed on the color wheel. Yeah. And then it's not really a conscious choice. It's sort of, a default. And so, I think that number one, brands don't realize how important that is just in terms of establishing differentiation. But number two, it's just like making a huge leap in terms of, of color for, an established brand like Cornerstone, not a decision that you take lightly.
No. And I'm on their website now, and I love it. And, full disclosure, we did not do the rebrand. Yep. So when I say I love it, I truly do love it. I'm not just trying to promote work that we did or whatever. But one of the really interesting things that I notice on their website, that first panel that, the above the scroll, that you see, mm-hmm. I love everything about this. And so I kind of want to break this down. And so people should go out and, look at the Cornerstone On Demand websites, cornerstoneondemand.com. They go by Cornerstone now, but the website's still cornerstoneondemand.com. And here are just a few things that I noticed. And I won't even go below the fold. I'm just going to look at, like the preview pane, right? So the headline is Power the Future-Ready Workforce. And then below that, it says a skills-forward, AI-powered, experiential system built for the new ways we work. Mm-hmm. Learn more, book a demo. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have looked at that and said, oh boy, oh boy. They forgot to say what they do. They forgot to say what they do for a living. And so if I'm out looking for an integrated talent management system, and this is the first thing that I see, I might think that I'm in the wrong place, right? But this kind of gets back to that, almost like SuccessFactors moment, back in the day when they became like the business execution software company. They actually are taking I think they're doing the right thing. They're taking advantage of a unique moment in the tech landscape to basically go beyond simple categorization, simple value propositions, to really put something out there that people might not understand completely when they first read it, but has a lot of meaning for people who step outside of like category labels and are just dealing with all the changes that are happening to work right now. What do you think about the message component?
I think you're right. I think that especially when you look at kind of what Cornerstone is doing and what they're trying to become, I think that you're getting, in terms of like what they do as you go further down the page. And so, really it's this whole idea of what is your future workforce going to be. For me personally, this, if I can be a word nooge for a second, the thing that really kind of bothers me about the headline is future ready should be hyphenated and not broken. and I mean, having spent, a decade writing headlines in, the world of newspaper journalism back in the 1990s, that was something that would get your ass kicked.
I wasn't going to say
anything
anything about that. I wasn't going to say anything about it. It bothered me too, but there's obviously a difference between, great copywriting and, great grammar. And, so, maybe this is one of those moments where the lack of a hyphen could be forgiven, but it did bother me, too, because I think you and I are both trained to, kind of read based on, Strunk and White.
Yeah. But also it's just like you kind of get to the point of the challenge of writing copy in dynamic copy, where it's just like depending on the screen size and the resolution and is it mobile, is it desktop, all of those rules that were true for like, print copywriting are all out the window. And so because you and I are fossils who come from the distant past, we have all that legacy learning that is probably no longer germane or relevant, but we're still burdened by it. It's a heavy thing to carry. But go ahead.
No, please, after you.
Oh, no. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about as I was kind of going through this is especially the homepage. Technically, they've got all the things that you would want to see. Yeah. As I was going through here, one of the things I was thinking though is like, okay, so we're agency guys, and so we always want to know like who did the rebrand. Yeah. This strikes me as like being maybe an in-house rebrand.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a lot of organizations that reach the scale that Cornerstone does, have basically internal agencies, and what's great about that model frequently is that the people who like live the brand are the same people who are kind of working on the brand. And I think I want to talk a little bit about that later, because you also sent around an article that was very interesting, written by the founder of Big Ass Fans, who clearly hates agencies. And so I do want to talk about that. But yeah, I think you're right. But I have to keep deconstructing just like the first kind of 3 inches of this website, because there's just so much to cool stuff to unpack here.
Well, you go, because I mean the thing that I was going to unpack with that, because I mean, and it just like in-house rebrand, absolutely no judgment there, but one of the things that always seems to leap out with an in-house rebrand is sort of a lack of depth in texture.
Sure.
That if you look at a lot of just designery designers, folks who work in brand agencies, there's layers and layers and layers of texture that give it a level of depth that, that's one of the things I really kind of appreciate about a very well-constructed brand is how many levels it can operate at. Yeah. This is very austere. It is very, very minimalist. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it seems like something you would see come out of an internal team versus an agency.
Yeah. I get you. I feel you. I think that, there's just in the context of the website, because that's all I'm really judging right now. Right. I think that some elements that they had to push forward in the website, like the little robot guy.
Yeah, which I don't understand what that is, because I tried to click on it and it was like, is that a bot?
Well,
is that going to make my monitor blow up? What's that doing?
So I love the little robot guy. And the reason I love the little robot guy, first of all, did you notice that the Cornerstone logo is on the little robot? And so,
yes, I did.
Yeah, that's like, what do they call that? Not a personification, but the other word that basically means the embodiment of something. You know, it's
embodiment.
Yeah, let's use embodiment. It's like the embodiment of Cornerstone. So clearly, you know what that element is meant to do. It does create a lot of depth, you know, on the pane. But it also pushes forward this technology position, this technology component. It is austere. It's very minimalist. But it also has like a real technology, you know, kind of like futuristic component to it. And, you know, so I would like to see their brand executed in a lot of, you know, different formats to talk about other elements. But you know, if you think, I'm still looking at that robot in the video. I think it's fantastic. You know, I want to come back to this notion of, you know, this is supposed to be the pane on the website where you basically state, you know, what you do or what's special or whatever. And if I'd never heard of Cornerstone, and I were just, you know, kind of reading this first, you know, couple of headlines, I would look at a skills-forward, AI-powered, experiential system built for the new ways we work, right? So that's not a clean category statement. In fact, if I were to walk away and somebody says, you know, what is Cornerstone, I'd say they're an experiential system, because that's kind of the, you know, the headline in the headline. And, you know, I think a lot of people are going to look at that and they're going to say, wow, that is a, you know, mistake in positioning. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that fake argument I just made for other people.
Yeah,
I think this is that, you know, kind of in some ways that SuccessFactors moment where, you know, basically SuccessFactors, you know, was pretty well known in performance management and pretty well known in integrated talent management. And somewhere in between, they basically said, we are a business execution software, and everybody in the, you know, the industry kind of made relentless fun of like, well, what's business execution, you know, software mean? What does that mean? Right. And I think there's some components of brand that are very important to, you know, kind of talk about in that moment. Because if you look at the rise of SuccessFactors and you compare it to what we're seeing right now, so SuccessFactors, I think, was founded in 2001. Mm-hmm. And from the get-go, they were spending money on marketing. In fact, I think at one time they were spending like 70% of their annual revenue in marketing.
1 year, according to their regulatory filings, I think they spent something like 140% of annual revenue on sales and marketing.
Yeah, and you know,
which is baller.
Yeah, it is. And I remember at the time there were some, you know, very well respected, you know, kind of folks out there who followed the space who said, I don't get it. You know, I don't get, you know, how this company is so valued when they're clearly running such a poor business. They're not profitable. Right. They're throwing money at marketing. And, you know, they're at the time that they were also spending a lot of money on marketing, their net promoter score was really low. They had like some of the lowest customer satisfaction in the industry. And we had a lot of conversations about it at the time, and I think we agreed at the time. I can't remember, but we said, "Look, this is brilliant," because and it actually spawned a bunch of research that we did. But basically, we said they're buying brand recognition first, and there's
on the cheap,
on the cheap, right, compared to like what it costs now. But they're buying recognition first, and then once they have the market share. And the brand recognition, they can kind of come back in and work on a lot of these other issues. And a lot of that spend along the way, and by the way, what, you know, the research that, you know, we, you know, kind of did based on those insights was about the correlation between brand recognition and market share. And what we demonstrated by looking at a cohort of companies is that I believe it's causal, but causation is difficult to prove, and who's got time for that? But we did prove a correlation that if you went out to the open market and studied assisted or unassisted brand recognition, and one company comes in first, one company comes in second, one company comes in third, down the line, that about 12 to 18 months later, that was predictive of the market share. And so if you were second in market share, but first in brand recognition, chances are that you would be first in market share about 12 to 18 months later. So there was this really strong correlation between brand recognition and performance in the market. But the other thing that's really interesting, and I think, kind of plays in a little bit to what's happening with Cornerstone here, is that the market reached a point and SuccessFactors reached a point where they didn't have to say we do performance management.
Right.
And they were able to focus their brand on more of a brand campaign than on brand with a capital B, and that gave them the latitude to say we're business execution software, which was a pretty big idea at the time. It's like, hey, we're about getting shit done. Instead of hewing to, the categorization, taxonomies that, kind of existed in the marketplace at the time. And I think we're at that point again where categories are in flux and what buyers want is so, significantly different, and organizational priorities are shifting, that powerful brands do have the ability to take some risks with how they position themselves in the marketplace.
I think they have to, because if you look at how everything is beginning to center around employee experience now, and how all of a sudden it's just like Microsoft has, after years of sort of like very kind of quietly making all the moves, they've gone all in on employee experience, and they're very much a workplace technology company. You have even Facebook, really placing some big bets on that. Salesforce, same kind of thing. So you have a lot of what have been, heretofore not really work tech brands at all, becoming really the most powerful work tech brands. And what's interesting is because we have been talking about employee experience for forever, for the better part of the last decade. It's easy to believe that everyone's talking about it, everybody knows about it. It's completely saturated the consciousness of every buyer out there. But the truth is, and I was talking to one of our friends, good friends, Lori Rudiman, about this the other day, and she was talking about a conference that she spoke at. Hey, Lori. And giving a keynote speech, and just doing one of those like hand raising things, and like better than like 60% of the audience had no idea what employee experience was. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like there's still a long way to go in terms of becoming the dominant brand. And, so I think that, some of these big, consumer brands, or these mass market brands, the Facebooks, the Microsofts, the Salesforces, are going to have a bit of an advantage. But then B, I think that something that's sort of underrated is the educate the market component. Yeah. They're going to educate the market and spend a lot of marketing dollars doing it. And the rising tide is going to lift a lot of boats. And so I think that, as a brand, you have to figure out what is my position in the market? Am I top tier? Am I second tier? Am I like eighth tier? And then how does that kind of fit into, my overall brand strategy for this market?
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I would also say there's a nuance here, which is, branding at a moment like this when, kind of new ideas are taking root and will eventually become the dominant ideas. I don't believe that employee experience is going anywhere. No. It is the most significant and important thing, coming out of, almost 2 years of being in the pandemic now and seeing the impact of a bad employee experience. But at moments like these, I always tell the story about Salesforce that in, I think 1999, when Salesforce was founded, everyone was saying, hey, don't go to the cloud. It's super scary. They're going to steal your data. You don't own your data. It was all like trying to prevent this new organizing principle of, cloud-based solutions coming to market. And, about a decade later, maybe, a few more years, they had the tallest skyscraper in San Francisco. Yeah. And they did it through, hewing to the new organizing principle, being on the right side of history, but also really effective branding and marketing, really great stuff. In fact, if you remember, like their whole brand campaign for years was just no software. They just had the word software, and they had that big red, kind of circle around it with a slash through it. And that was, they were promoting the principle. They weren't promoting, why they were a better, Salesforce automation tool, which is, or a contact management tool or whatever, the categorization was back then. But at times like this, it's not as much about where you stand in the market. It's about what you stand for. Right. And, I'd just like to take a moment to relate that to, kind of the marketing models that are out there. I believe strongly that if you think you're going to, stake a position within a category and you're going to spend a bunch of money in an inbound marketing model and drive a bunch of leads from people with purchase intent who are looking to buy, from a certain category, then you are missing the boat. And what leaders right now really need to do, and I'm talking about, the new towers that are going to be built in San Francisco. Yeah. What leaders right now are doing and need to do is focus on building their brand and focus on what they stand for rather than where they stand. And, taking some of those chances to promote an idea that is bigger than any, kind of meaning conveyed from a single category. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And I mean, then of course there's a lot of follow-on ramifications of what you just said, which is, and we've been talking about this a lot, is, the problem with inbound is, how you are just trying to connect and convert. Yeah. It's just like, get the lead, follow up, buy my shit, just kind of like pounding the phones rather than kind of building the relationships, and how that, building a relationship component of the conversation, especially within kind of like outbound, which is becoming, it's crazy when you talk about like outbound marketing, because for us, it's just sort of like, it is becoming the dominant model and everybody's struggling with it. But I think that there's still a lot of marketers out there and a lot of salespeople feel like we can do it all with inbound alone, which I think is crazy. But
no, because
just being, go ahead.
No, inbound is based on, getting your message in front of people with purchase intent. Yeah. And that, so there was like a 10-year period between like the establishment of cloud solutions and before the pandemic struck, where, buying work tech was like walking into a grocery store. And there were, clearly defined aisles. And, I want to buy some performance management. I want to buy some talent acquisition. I want to buy, this over here or that over there.
Creating relationships and building for the long term, all that shit goes out the window.
I agree. And look, there's nothing wrong with inbound marketing. I'm not against inbound marketing. The problem is that, the type of marketing that you have to do at certain times based on certain strategies and certain market conditions changes. And sometimes people don't want to change with the times. And it's, it's like a cycle. Inbound marketing works really great when categories are very clearly defined, when buyers know exactly what they want to buy, when they're going looking for categories and you're just trying to get your, share of the market. The problem is right now, nobody knows what they want to buy. Right. It's like now they're going into the grocery store and all the aisles have been like, pushed over and, the peas are, like mixing up with, frozen foods and the, toilet paper and all that stuff. And people are just like going in with these problems that they need to solve at home or, solutions that they need to bring to the table. And they don't really know where to look or how to put it together. And so if your entire marketing strategy is based on, getting your message in front of people who have purchase intent, then you're only finding the people who are buying the old shit. That's what's happening right now. It's like inbound marketing programs at this particular moment in time that are very focused on category labels and clearly defined, categorization and stuff like that, are really working to pull in people who are buying the solutions that are going to be on the wrong side of history. Whereas, a lot of, and it's going to send false signals, to your point. It's going to send false signals to the company, because if they have some success and they get their, 15% close rate, from the, cascade of metrics, they're going to say we're doing a great job. But what they don't realize is that the market share that they're acquiring is not the market share of the future. And the market share of the future is more based on people who have shifting organizational priorities, who don't know exactly what solutions to bring to the table. And they need, to your point earlier, they need to be educated. They're looking for information. They want to develop relationships, and they want to put a solution together at the same time that they're learning these new things that they need and how to respond to the changes that have happened out there in the world. And so, inbound marketing is great for, certain market segments at certain times. I think it's a little oversold as a concept. And I think that, the leaders 5 years from now are going to be the ones who built relationships and engaged a new type of buyer who's putting together a different type of solution stack, a different type of tech stack, based on what they learned about employee experience during the pandemic.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I think that that's, something that's becoming very clear in the data that we're looking at for, across all of our clients, the conversations that we're having with actual buyers in the market is there's a large swath of the market that has no idea what they need to buy. They know they need to do something different, but they don't know what that is.
Yeah, it reminds me of when, we were switching over to a cloud-based world. And, people were earnestly going to like HR Tech and, shows like that. And we would hear these conversations where people were talking to each other and they were just trying to figure shit out. They were just trying to figure out what all these new solutions were and weighing that against what their organizational priorities are. Here we are again. It's like if you bring up, an important part of the employee experience like diversity, equity, and inclusion, people really don't know what to do. The vast majority of people don't know what to do to create diversity, equity, inclusion inside their organizations. And they certainly don't know how to put together that mix of internal resources with external services and external solutions to achieve what they intuitively know that they want to achieve, but can't quite put their finger on in terms of how to execute. And so, what are you going to do? You're going to run like an inbound marketing campaign for like, DE&I talent acquisition,
Right.
or, what? Because if somebody already feels like they know that they're looking for a specific category solution, they probably don't know what the solution of the future actually looks like. They probably haven't figured it out. And so you're going to acquire all that kind of laggard market share instead of
Right.
building, that kind of new innovative market share.
Right.
And so, that brings me back to Cornerstone and, a lot of, organizations in that kind of rarefied air of, large work tech companies who came out of the run-up during the cloud transformation. There are companies out there who are fighting against the organizing principle right now, right? Like the big companies who want to keep the field dynamics the same. And so they are, you'll hear it on sales calls and stuff like that, where they actually kind of poke fun at this notion of employee experience. And they keep saying things like, oh, people are going to come back to work. Things are going to get back to normal. And you know what? If those are the folks that you want to sell to, then, have fun watching your company be destroyed. If you, it'll go the way that Lawson went, right? When Lawson just kept telling, no, we're not switching from on-premise solutions. On-premise is great. The cloud sucks. Well, where's Lawson? They're gone. Sorry to anyone out there who, played a significant role in Lawson. But, that's where we are right now. There's a great upheaval. And I'm curious what you think about companies like Cornerstone. Does this rebrand signify that they are moving, to the other side of the fault line that gets created by a new organizing principle? Do they look nimble enough to make the leap, or, are they going to be surpassed by some of the innovative companies that are coming to market right now?
Well, I mean, and Cornerstone has always been a really fascinating brand to talk about, and we've had the opportunity to work with them periodically over the years. We were very fortunate to work with them when they went from like 10 million ARR to 100 million ARR in like 3 years. Yeah. But one of the things I've always been fascinated about was like they didn't get scooped up in the you know, the SuccessFactors, Taleo,
Connexa.
that binge of acquisition initially, and so it was like, oh yeah, they're dead, and then you know they went public, and it's just like they didn't necessarily perform the way they're supposed to. Oh yeah, they're dead. I mean, I think that Adam Miller is one of the most underrated founders / CEOs in the entire industry.
Plus one,
because he has been written off and discounted so many times, and all he did was build this company from the ground up to what's their market cap now, like $6 billion.
Yeah, it's like crypto.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like if you look at Cornerstone and kind of what they're doing, I think that they've always been a brand that you underestimate at your peril.
Yeah.
And while I think that there's obviously things that as brand people and brand marketers, we can quibble about I like this and don't like that, which is really, about a rebrand, especially a rebrand that has just launched. You can't, you can't judge what the brand is going to be 3 years down the line. Yeah. So I think they're off to a good start. When you compare it with a brand like a UKG, that I think they've done a fantastic job with their rebrand. I think that going with that teal kind of blue-green color was a very polarizing choice. But like if you compare like the Cornerstone website to the UKG website, lots of depth, lots of texture. Yeah. There's just they're clicking a lot of the boxes, and Jody Kaminsky, who's the CMO over there now,
so
we've
great.
been fortunate to work with her. She may be, she's certainly probably the longest tenured major CMO in our entire space, and she has just done such a fantastic job over years and years. And now you have a $14 billion company putting together Ultimate and Kronos, and it's just like, that brand better sing, and it does. Yeah, and it just seems like that's really they're surging and they're moving in the right direction on so many fronts.
Yeah, and it's execution across the board. And if you kind of go back and look at just the moves that they have been making in terms of the acquisitions and all that stuff, they've been moving in the experience. I mean, first of all, I remember some very specific conversations with Jody back in the day where it was all about people first, and it wasn't a slogan. It was like something that they truly believed. Yeah. And I mean, it showed because they won every best places to work, competition at the local, national, and global level, like forever. And when you walked onto their campus in Florida, you could feel it, like people cared about the work that they were doing, and they felt it was important. And so I think they're going to be on the right side of the fault line because they've been moving in that direction probably before most people, in the marketplace. But then just the execution and marketing is just phenomenal. The brand is amazing. The brand campaigns, the messages that they bring to market, but also the internal workings of how they market. And how they create relationships and engage folks, prior to those folks developing purchase intent. There are some categories out there where 80 or 90% of the market is already penetrated, and where the turnover is maybe 3 to 5 years with people switching solutions. And so, to bring it back to inbound marketing, if all you're doing is running an inbound marketing program, you're basically hoping to catch the, 20% or so of the market that's turning over, every now and then, right? And not building relationships with people in advance. And so if you've got a market, operation, a sales operation that just has that connect and convert, kind of muscle memory, you might get a quote lead from somebody who fits all of your criteria for being, an excellent customer in the future, but because they don't have budget, authority, time frame, need, all that stuff, nobody knows what to do with them. And right. So, maybe they get a nurture stream or something like that and get a few emails every now and then. But nobody's building a relationship with them so that when they finally do switch, that new company has already built their position as kind of the early favorite vendor for, where they're going next. And I just think that, there are so many opportunities right now for big companies to, kind of be on the right side of that fault line and put big ideas into the marketplace. The industry channels are saturated. You can't buy AdWords anymore. You can't compete with the budgets on inbound marketing. But a big idea can still, change everything and really kind of, carve out a unique position based on what you stand for rather than where you stand. And I think, big companies are going to be able to do that. Some of them will. But there's also a lot of companies out there that, they're getting, we track this all the time. We talk about it every week. They're getting hundreds of millions of dollars. And some of those companies are truly going to have, the next big tower in San Francisco, and they're going to look unlike any big company that exists right now. And I love it. I think it's a moment of creative destruction and, creative construction. And it's a really exciting time to, kind of just be part of, I think the biggest thing in the world, Well,
and in both from a product perspective, but then also from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about how we're seeing kind of across the board, cost of customer acquisition going up at the same time that, total deal value is going down for way too many companies.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but it's just like the really kind of following the typical kind of the metric-driven inbound marketing approach is, you're seeing that point of diminishing returns on that is leading a lot of companies to say we have to get our shit together with outbound and ABM.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's the whole that's the whole key, right? Is like average contract value and customer lifetime value. And for companies whose average contract value is decreasing and their customer lifetime value is decreasing, they have to stop and ask themselves, maybe it's because the way that we're selling and the way that we're positioning in the market in these very, kind of specific categories and trying to catch people when they're out shopping, maybe it's that their position is becoming commoditized. Right. And when commoditization happens, prices go down, loyalty goes down, et cetera, and people are just trying to get that product. And so I would say to anybody out there who's listening, like if you have that problem, if you are seeing, your average contract value and your customer lifetime value going down, people don't often think about that as a customer experience or marketing problem, but it's almost always a customer experience or marketing problem. And it's that how they're talking about themselves is becoming less valued in the marketplace versus the new, big ideas that are coming out now. But, who's going to listen to an agency anyway, right? So you sent, an article in the industry brief that I just found fascinating, which was written by the founder of Big Ass Fans. If you don't know the company Big Ass Fans, you got to go check it out because they sell big ass fans.
Really big ass fans.
And they're awesome.
They're awesome.
Every awesome like patio, like margarita joint in, Texas, and I'm sure probably around the world has a big ass fan. Mm-hmm. And he was very, not complimentary of working with agencies. What? Tell me a little bit about that story.
It was basically just like, if you see this from a branding agency, you should run the other direction. And there was a lot of stuff just about how, how agencies buy into too much of their own awesomeness. And if you're not a sophisticated buyer, how they can lead you down the wrong direction, waste a lot of time, money. And one of the things I think he really hit on that was incredibly valid is the idea that if you look at a lot of branding agencies, especially small ones, they have their in-house aesthetic, which basically means when you look at their portfolio, all of their branding work looks the same. Mm-hmm. It's not about discovering what is it about this brand and how do we help the brand be true to itself and authentic to itself. It's how do I put my vision for what I think a good brand should be on that, and as a result, everything looks the same.
Yeah, how do I win the next Addy or the next Golden Line or like whatever? It's all about portfolio management and career stuff and everything. And I have to say at this point, full disclosure, the biggest part of our business is an agency. Yeah. And so I read the article and I was like wincing. And, I wanted to say, look, like, one of the things, like, first of all, in response to that article, and that article appeared in
Ink.
In Ink. Yeah, so we'll put a link in the description so you can read the article. But, as I was kind of wincing, saying, wow, that's really not like the experiences that we have, I was like, one of the things that I would ask an agency, if I were going to hire an agency, is like, what's the average tenure of your people? And the reason I would ask that question is because a lot of agencies are revolving doors, and the people who come in and out of those revolving doors are really managing their careers. And so they're more, or at least as focused on their portfolio or their body of work, as they are the work that needs to be produced for the client to produce the business results that they want, or the overall results that they want. Our agency has, probably about half of the folks that we have been here for 7 years or more. And we've hired a lot of new folks recently, but, we always tried to create an environment where, basically people wanted to stay forever, because there's so much value in, people growing with an organization and learning about, a very specific thing like work tech or, B2B marketing or whatever. You see someone great walk out the door because you just lost a big account, and then to hire a bunch of new people because you just won a big account. I think you're really just kind of letting, the most important, valuable thing just kind of, that makes everything happen, your people, kind of come in and go. And my response to that article is really two things. Number one is ask your agency how long people have been there. And then the second thing I would say is, we always talk about the fact that we are industrial artists, Yeah. Like, we don't get paid by patrons so that we can, kind of create the thing that gets us the most excited. We get paid by clients to help them achieve their business goals. And that means that our art, our writing, our, digital marketing, like all the stuff that we do is not about us, it's about them. And so even when, we take a position like, hey, inbound marketing might not be the best thing going on right now. Well, that could be a very dangerous thing for us to say, right?
Right.
Because we have a lot of inbound marketing programs, but look, it's about the client. And if that's what the client wants, and if it works for them, and it does work in some very specific, instances, then we're going to do that. And along the way, we're going to provide guidance, and we're going to, provide examples of things that are working well in other companies and other corners of the market, et cetera. But, we're not going to go in and like impose our will on them. And I think a lot of that comes from, basically the way that most agencies are, structured, and what the motivation is for a lot of the people who work at agencies like that. I don't know.
And I mean, it's the also the fact that a lot of agencies, especially branding agencies, just want to create a beautiful brand, as you said, to highlight their portfolio, and they don't really care what the impact of the decisions that they're making are.
Yeah.
How is this brand going to perform, relative to the rest of its category? How is this brand going to perform in demand generation? There's a lot of just sort of the impact of marketing a brand that they don't care about, because it's just like, hey, I just want something that looks good for my portfolio. I'm gonna create the vision, and then I'm out. And it's just like, they don't have to live with the brand succeeding or failing in the market.
That's right. Yeah, and when we started this thing a long time ago, I used to care about things like the trophy case and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, now the thing that I care most about is our awesome Employee of the Month posters,
which are fantastic,
which are amazing, and they're just total works of art. But for me, just bringing together a great group of folks who really care about each other and care about our client success is much more important than filling the trophy case with hardware. So, which brings me to vodka. You were telling me a very interesting thing about vodka, which is
interesting and terrifying at the same time.
I think we need to Snopes that.
No, I mean, I've seen the headlines in major newspapers. I've seen it on the network, and so it should be valid, but you can't you can't eliminate the fact that maybe, whoever came up with this is just punking a lot of people.
This is going to be,
it's a Ryan Reynolds thing,
Yeah. This is going to be like when, Walmart announced that they were going to accept cryptocurrency. And then 2 days later, Walmart came out and said, wait, that wasn't us. We didn't say that.
Right.
So what's this announcement?
The announcement is Arby's is launching its own crinkle fry and curly fry vodkas.
Oh, those are separate? Those are separate brands? You can get the crinkle?
Yeah, it's the fries flavored 80 proof bottles will be available to purchase November 18th.
This is what happened to Austin. And there's a point here. There was a point at which the market for everything became so crowded in Austin that you couldn't just, have a restaurant. It had to be like a restaurant that's also a bowling alley, that's also like a live band, karaoke night. That's also like, you had to differentiate so significantly just to be the thing that, people went to next. And obviously the vodka market is so crowded that, you really got to stand out to, bring people over to a new brand.
Well, and it's just like, and you can see the website, arbysvodka.com. It's there. This could be a really elaborate ruse, in which case, I salute you, internet fraudulent person. It's just that whole thing about, mashing up these different ideas. Although one idea that is a mashup that, is sort of like,
you said mashup, and we're talking about potatoes.
I know. Oh, yeah. Good one, Brett.
Sorry. You were saying.
No, that's just sort of like peak bouginess is this new concept of dog park plus bar. It's just like, why did it take so long for someone to put those two ideas together?
Yeah, that's like the old laundromat plus bar. Of course you need that.
Right.
What else are you going to do?
Exactly.
Makes sense to me.
But there's pretty much like anything, plus bar, except maybe like driving school plus bar.
Yeah.
That's going to work.
Yeah. Well, on to the next chapter of Bar Plus. All right, man. Well, anything that else that you want to cover? Any big news?
No, once you've talked about Arby's vodka, you've pretty much hit it.
I just imagine, in closing, the poor guy who went into the boardroom and said, at Arby's, we need to get into the vodka business. And I wonder how that meeting went.
Well, see, that's why I think it was someone like a Ryan Reynolds, because he came out with that commercial for the McRib cocktail, was it? So it's just like, okay, it sounds real, but it's just totally a spoof.
Yeah, let's see what the internet says.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then
the internet's never wrong about anything, are they?
That's absolutely true. All right, man. Well, enjoy your weekend, and I look forward to speaking with you again next week. I'm sure we'll have many conversations before then.
Absolutely. Take care, my friend.
Bye.